Now let's take the last two problems from for the polynomial chapter, and the first one says what should be added to x square minus 5x plus 4 so that 3 is a 0 of the resulting polynomial. Now this is an easy question. Let a be added, so let this be the new polynomial that we'll be getting. Let a be the number that's been added to the polynomial to so that 3 becomes a 0 of it. Now it is given that P3 is 0 because 3 will be a 0 of this given polynomial. Therefore, 3 square minus 5 into 3 plus 4 plus a will be equal to 0. So what do we get? We get 9 minus 15 plus 4 plus a is equal to 0. Therefore, a is equal to how much? 13 minus a is equal to 2. So when a is equal to 2, that means 2 must be added to this to make this resulting polynomial have 3 as a 0. Now this last question concerns the graph that you might have studied. We will be getting into the into the finer nuances of what the graph represents. Now if you have learned about graphs in this chapter, you would be knowing that for a quadratic polynomial, the graph is a parabola. The shape U shape is a parabola. Just like this is a circle, this is an ellipse, this is a parabola. So in all the cases for a quadratic polynomial, the graph is going to be a parabola. Just like for a linear polynomial, it's always going to be a straight line. So this is going to be the graph, and the graph is shaped U if a is greater than 0. If in the polynomial ax square plus bx plus c, if a is greater than 0, then the graph will always be shaped upwards, and if a is less than 0, then the graph is always shaped inverted U. So this you have to remember. This is also discussed in the book. So if you have to understand it, you can just go into the book and learn more about it. So whenever the quadratic polynomial is curved upwards, it is U-shaped, the value of a will be greater than 0, and whenever it is inverted, the a value will be less than 0. So since this is an upward bent graph, therefore we can ascertain that a will be greater than 0. This is something that we know for certain because it is U-shaped and not inverted U-shaped. Now about b and c. Now if you look at this point, which is minus b by 2a and minus d by 4a, this is the x coordinate, right? This is the x coordinate of the point. X coordinate, and this is the fourth quadrant. In the fourth quadrant, x is positive and y is negative. So minus b by 2a will be positive. It has to be positive. Now we know that a is positive since the graph is shaped U. So this is positive. This number would be positive. There is a minus sign here. So for this whole thing to be a positive number, b has to be negative. If b is negative, then negative and negative will combine together to become positive. This denominator is already positive. So then only it will become greater than 0. So from here we deduce that b is going to be less than 0. So b less than 0. B is less than 0. Why? Because if b is less than 0, then it will combine with this minus to become positive. 2a is positive. So in that case only the denominator is going to be a positive number. So b you have ascertained now. Now the third thing about c. How do we get c? Now another thing that you can observe in the graph is this point. For this point, which is the point of intersection of the graph and the y-axis. What can you say about this point? At this point, the value of this particular point will have an x coordinate and a y coordinate, right? The x coordinate and the y coordinate will be fx. Since this graph is of the polynomial fx is equal to ax square plus bx plus c, therefore the y coordinate is fx and the x coordinate is x. So at this point, the value of x is going to be 0. On the y-axis, the value of x is always 0. So x is 0, right? And what is the value of y coordinate? It will be f0 because it was fx. So at this point x is 0, so fx will become f0. Now what is f0? f0 will be a into 0 square is 0 plus b into x, b into 0, 0 plus c. So f of 0 is going to be c. Now what do we know about f0? f0 is a point here. It lies on the positive side of the y-axis. So f0 is going to be greater than 0. This is a positive value, right? Negative would start from here and it will go on negative this side. This is going to be a positive value. So f0 is positive. Now f0 is c. Therefore, we can infer that c is going to be greater than 0. So this is how you do this question. So a few things to note in this question are that whenever the graph, quadratic polynomials graph is always going to be a parabola. A linear polynomials graph is always going to be a straight line that is inclined to the x-axis. It's not going to be parallel. It's not going to be parallel to the x-axis. In case it is parallel, then it will become a constant polynomial. And for a quadratic polynomial, the graph is going to be a parabola. The parabola, if it is u-shaped, then the value of a in the standard form ax squared plus bx plus c is going to be positive. If it is inverted u, then the value of a is going to be negative. And another thing that you must know is, if the d discriminant is greater than 0, if it is greater than 0, then the graph will cut the x-axis at two distinct points. That will mean if this is greater than 0 and the graph cuts at these 2 points, that means there are two real zeros. So when d is greater than 0, the quadratic polynomial will have two real zeros, and those two real zeros will be these 2 points, the values of x that you get here and here. So that will be the case. And if the value of d is equal to 0, then in that case the graph is going to just touch the x-axis. It might touch in the first quadrant, it might touch in the second quadrant, it might touch like this, but it will touch the x-axis at just one point. It will not cross it, it will just touch it if the value of d is equal to 0. In that case, the graph is going to touch at just one point. And if d is less than 0, in that case the graph is not going to touch the x-axis at all. It's going to be in any shape, but it will not touch. Okay, so if the graph of the quadratic polynomial graph does not touch or cross the x-axis, you would know for certain that the value of b square minus 4ac is less than 0. So this is all that you have to learn in the graphs. You might not be asked questions in such details, but it is always advisable to know more about what you are studying. This will always establish a foundation for what you are going to study in subsequent classes. So I hope you understood what I was trying to tell you.